Hi, my name is Mrs. Wackerly, and I am reading chapter 21 from Roland Smith's Peak. This chapter is called Arrest. Zopa, the weather monk, was right. Next morning, 2 feet of new snow. Sunjo and I probably didn't get 3 hours of sleep between us. He must have been feeling better, though, because he groggily offered to start the stove. The process sometimes takes 10 or 15 minutes because there isn't enough oxygen to keep the flame going on the gas lighter long enough to light the stove. I crawled out with our pan to collect some snow to melt and saw Zopa, the Sherpa brothers, and the film crew were already up. And it was obvious from the steam coming off their pan of water that they had been up for quite a while. Zopa was talking on the radio. That could mean only one thing this early in the morning. Someone was in trouble. I glanced toward the summit through the swirling snow. If it was this bad down here, it was much worse up there. Yogi and Yash will stay here at Camp 4, Zopa was saying. If the weather breaks, they will try to get oxygen up to Camp 5. I'm not sure we can get them down to Camp 5, a shaky German-accented voice said. You must, Zopa said forcefully. There is no chance of rescue at Camp 5 or 6. In this weather, you will have to come down to Camp 4. You must leave Camp 6 as soon as you can. Do you understand? This was followed by a long silence, then a discouraged and quiet, Ja, verstehe ich. He understood. Zopa gave him a blessing in Nepalese and signed off. Are those the same Germans you did the puja ceremony for? Zopa nodded. The Italians are up there as well. What's going on? 2 cases of HAPE at Camp 6, JR answered. Maybe another mild case at Camp 5. 2 climbers headed up to the summit a little after midnight and haven't been heard from since. In this weather, that meant they were probably dead or hypothermic and close to death. Maybe we can go up to Camp 5 with Yogi and Yash and help, I said. Zopa shook his head. You and Sunjo and Miss Angelo need to get down to ABC. Other Sherpas are coming up to help, but until the climbers get to Camp 5, there's nothing anyone can do. As soon as you eat, pack your things. We need to leave before the weather worsens. Because of the snow and ice, getting down the col was worse than going up, and it wasn't made any easier by thinking about the climbers dying farther up the mountain. We passed the Sherpas going up to help. They were loaded with oxygen bottles and Gamoth bags. Their plan was to get to Camp 4 that afternoon. If the weather didn't hold them back, they would head up the mountain the following morning to help Yogi and Yash get whoever had made it to Camp 5 down to Camp 4. If the weather broke, a rescue helicopter might be able to get that high, but even on the best day, an airlift was dicey. If the chopper couldn't make it, the Sherpas would have to get the climbers down to ABC as best as they could. We made it down to ABC in pretty good time in spite of the snow. I think what drove us was our eagerness to crawl into our tents and sleep for 2 days. The camp was nearly empty. Sunjo was still pretty weak, but confident that he would be better by the time we came up. I was beginning to feel a little less surly toward him. This probably had a lot to do with Zopa's compliment the night before. I was pretty sure they weren't out to sabotage my climb. The next morning, the film crew members were all vomiting. It looked like they had caught the same thing Sunjo had. Zopa cut their acclimatization short and arranged to have them go down to base camp with another climbing party. None of them complained. I'm going too, Holly said. Zopa shook his head. You are fine. To complete the acclimatization, you will need to stay here at least 2 days. She gave him a smile. It's over for me, she said. I have no desire to go higher than Camp 4. You could make it to the summit, Zopa insisted. She shook her head and grinned. Too slow. It's not in me this year. I appreciate all you've done. She shook his hand, then turned to me. What about that interview right after you get to the summit? I may not make it to the summit, I hedged. I think you will. She looked at Sunjo. How about you? Will you give me an exclusive interview after you come down? Yes. I thought he was being overly optimistic, but I didn't say anything. It's a deal, and your grandfather is our witness, Holly said. It means you can't talk to any other print journalist until after you talk to me. Call you in New York City? Yes, she wrote down several numbers. Don't lose them. Before she left, she gave me a hug. I didn't mind this time. In fact, I was going to miss her, which surprised me. If you ever get back to New York, Peak, you better call. I will. As they headed down, JR stopped and shouted back for me to remember to use the camera. Just before dark, 5 climbers, 2 Germans, 3 Italians, and their Sherpas stumbled into ABC looking like they had been buried alive. Most of them had frostbite someplace on their bodies, fingers, toes, ears, noses. One of them had snow blindness and had been led into camp by a rope tied around his waist. There was no doctor in camp, so Zopa and Gulu, who had stayed behind with his yak so he could sneak Sunjo back into base camp, did their best treating their injuries. When they finished, it was clear that 3 of the climbers were not going to make it back down to base camp on their own. The other 2 German climbers who had HAPE were not going to make it down at all. They had died at Camp 6 2 hours after Zopa talked to the distraught German climber the previous day. 4 dead, assuming the 2 climbers headed to the summit didn't make it, which was a pretty good assumption at that point. It's hard to think straight at that altitude, but I had enough feeling in my oxygen-starved brain to feel a little shame over the way I had been thinking about Sunjo. Climbing Everest is not a competition. It's life and death. The surviving climbers at Camp 6 headed down to Camp 5. Yogi and Yash were helping them haul the climber with mild HAPE to Camp 4. Those who could would have to make their way to ABC the next day. Zopa radioed Josh and told him what was going on. "We have a chopper here with a Chinese pilot willing to take a risk," Josh said, "but the weather is going to have to get a lot better up there before he can give it a shot. Do you think it might clear before dark?" Zopa did not have to look. Visibility was down to about 20 feet. "Negative," he answered. "Then we'll have to wait till tomorrow. Any idea when the climbers from Camp 4 will make it down to ABC?" "No, but we will go up to meet them. Early afternoon, I hope." "The chopper's small," Josh said. "It will only hold 4 people aside from the pilot and Captain Sheck. You'll have to choose who gets a ride and who goes down on their own 2 feet. "Captain Sheck is coming up?" "That's what I hear. He's still looking for that kid." "Why? The boy left. He is certainly not up here." "I told Sheck that, but apparently he doesn't believe it. He searched the Porter camp yesterday, and today he has soldiers checking everyone coming down to base camp." "I guess he could do what he wants," Zopa said, but I could see he was worried. So was Sunjo. I wasn't sure how they were going to get him back down to the Porter camp. Gulu's yak had eaten its hay, so there was nothing for Sunjo to hide under. Captain Sheck checking climbers was not good news, nor was his search of the Porter camp. "We have a lot of injured climbers up here," Zopa continued. "We could use the room in that helicopter." "I know," Josh said. "I'll talk to Captain Sheck again. Maybe he'll realize that taking up an empty seat might be the death of a climber. The death would be his fault." It was true, but the conversation was entirely for Captain Sheck's benefit, who was no doubt eavesdropping. "I hope so," Zopa said, then changed the subject. "Did Miss Angelo and the film crew get down?" "They just arrived. Holly's packing her gear. There's a truck leaving tomorrow. To tell you the truth, she made it farther up the mountain than I expected. Doc's taking a look at the film crew right now. They barely made it into camp. Almost everybody has the virus down here. Leah's going crazy treating everyone. The chopper brought in more antibiotics. 5 more climbing parties pulled up stakes this morning and left the mountain sick as dogs. I think I'm getting it too. If it keeps up, no one is going to get to the summit from this side." I hoped that what I'd gotten over was the same virus everyone else was getting now, and I wouldn't get it again. I'd have to be careful when I got back down. I wasn't about to have a virus wreck my chances of getting to the summit. Early the next morning, Zopa sent everyone down to base camp except for the climber with snow blindness and the man with frostbitten feet. Sunjo and Gulu went with them. Sunjo couldn't very well stay at ABC with Captain Sheck coming up. I didn't ask how they were going to get him to the Porter camp, but I guess they would keep him at one of the camps between ABC and base camp until Captain Sheck gave up. Zopa asked if I wanted to go too. I did, but I told him I'd stay and help him with the climbers coming down from Camp 4. The weather had broken during the night. It was still cold, but the clouds had thinned and the wind had died down some. The climber with mild HAPE had gotten worse during the night, and they put him in a bag. This meant they would not be able to bring him down the treacherous ice wall. The chopper would have to rescue him at Camp 4. Our job was to help Yogi and Yash get the remaining climbers and Sherpas down to ABC as quickly as possible. If some of them needed to be flown to base camp, they had to be ready to go when the chopper landed at ABC. There would only be one flight. We traveled light and got to the base of the col just as Yogi was coming down. He said that Yash was staying with the injured climbers at Camp 4. "How many?" Zopa asked. 3. 2 with bad frostbite and the one with HAPE. He looked up. Some of those coming down could also use a ride to base camp. There were 6 climbers altogether, exhausted but happy to get off the wall. Zopa offered them hits of oxygen, which most of them gratefully took. No point in acclimatization now. After they got to the base camp, they would be going home. A half hour outside ABC, the chopper flew over us on its way up to Camp 4. Zopa hurried everyone along, thinking the pilot would not stay long after he landed at ABC. It turned out the stay was longer than expected. The chopper landed 10 minutes after we arrived. Zopa picked 2 of the most debilitated climbers for the ride down, and 1 backup in case Captain Scheck had listened to reason and stayed at base camp. He hadn't. He stepped through the mini blizzard caused by the rotors wearing a full uniform, including a pistol. The pilot followed behind him and looked as unhappy as all of us did. Helicopters aren't designed to fly at that altitude. If the weather got worse, it wouldn't be able to fly. Captain Scheck didn't appear to be in any hurry at all. He casually walked over to the mess tent and looked inside, then smelled the pot of stew simmering on the gas stove like he was some sort of gourmet. "I will see everybody papers," he said. He had to be kidding. It was one thing to check everyone coming off the mountain, but to do it at 21,161 feet with injured climbers waiting to be evacuated was outrageous. Several of the climbers let out a howl of protest despite the thin air and their condition. "Why would we have our bloody papers up here? This is an emergency. We need to get the injured to base camp. Are you crazy?" Captain Scheck seemed a little shocked at the response and changed his tact. "We search camp before we leave," he said, causing another vocal outburst, which he ignored. He and the pilot went through all the tents, although the pilot was clearly not happy about the duty. When they finished, Captain Scheck said, "We're looking for boy." Everyone looked at me. "Not that boy. Nepal boy. Same age." "He went back home over a week ago," Zopa said. Captain Scheck shook his head. "I don't think." He pointed at the chopper. "You come with me." "We have injured climbers," Zopa said mildly. "I'll check in with you when I get to base camp tomorrow." "No," Scheck said. "You come with me now. I arrest you." One of the German climbers took a step toward the captain. He was the team leader who had taken us from Camp 6. His name was Dietrich. His face was bright red, and it wasn't from the cold. He began shouting in German, which I didn't understand. I don't think Captain Scheck understood either, but he put his hand on his pistol. Zopa stepped in front of Dietrich and said something to him in German. Then turned to the pilot and asked something in Chinese. The pilot thought about it for a moment, then answered. "He thinks he can take 4 climbers," Zopa said. There were 2 additional climbers who could have used a ride, but Dietrich relaxed a little and gave a terse nod. "What about you?" I asked Zopa. Zopa shrugged. "It's just a misunderstanding." He and I knew it was more than that. The question was, how much did Captain Scheck know? "I'll radio Josh and tell him what's going on." "Be careful going down," Zopa said. "You'll have to leave early and go slow. Ask Josh to send some Sherpas up to meet you in case I'm detained longer than I expect." 10 minutes later, they took off. I radioed Josh and told him about Zopa's arrest. "Scheck's a maniac," he shouted. "The Sherpas and porters down here are going to go nuts when they find out." I wonder if Captain Scheck's men would pass this on to him. I suspected they would. I also suspected that's exactly why Josh said it.